Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing here, giving you my immediate reaction to Vergil Ortiz's big win at welterweight over former world champion Maurice Hooker. Now, if you aren't familiar with this fight took place at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, aired live on DAZN, and it was a pretty good contest actually for all that it lasted. Before we get started into what I thought about Ortiz, the winner, the guy who most people predicted would win, let me give a shout out to Maurice Hooker. He certainly fought his ass off. He did better than I think most people thought he would. He really put forth a game effort, and really it seemed more in the end of that fight when he was stopped in the 7th frame that his body seemed to fail him more than anything else. It looked like he had an elbow or hand injury perhaps by the end of the contest, and ultimately that led to a stoppage. However, he was getting beaten up, and part of the reason he injured his elbow or his hand was due to the fact that he was blocking some vicious body shots by Ortiz. But anyway, for what it's worth, hats off to Maurice Hooker. He did a great job for what it's worth. In the end, came up a little bit short against Ortiz, who now moves on to bigger and better things, which we will get into a little bit later. As it pertains to Ortiz himself and his performance, it was a pretty good one, though we have to be honest, it was kind of what I expected. I don't know if you guys are familiar with my prediction for this fight, but it happened about the way that I thought it would. I thought it would end in the middle rounds. I thought Ortiz would win, but I also didn't think he would look as phenomenal as he has because Hooker is a good fighter. And I knew that he would give Ortiz some rough moments. I still expected Ortiz to win. I still thought he'd probably win by stoppage, as a matter of fact. Obviously, that was my prediction. But I knew he'd have to put forth a little more effort than many people seemed to think, who thought he might just steamroll Hooker. That wasn't going to be the case. He was going to have to put forth a legitimate effort in a hard-fought battle, which, while he might have won the majority, if not all of the rounds, it was one of those things where you could definitely tell that the rounds were being evenly contested at a high level, and Ortiz might have just been nicking them due to harder shots. But in the end, he still had to put forth, again, more effort than most people thought. He had a marked up face by the end of this fight. He got hit with a couple of pretty clean, hard shots. And again, he's an aggressive, offensive-minded fighter who does have better defense than most people think, who does move his head a little bit better, who does use his angles better than most people think, but he's still going to get hit with shots. When you're throwing shots, you're simply open. And if you face someone who has good range or who has great timing or who has some speed on their hands or in their hands, you're going to get hit with some shots. And that's where you have to make sure you fine-tune your game as you move into that upper echelon of the sport. Now, there's good news and bad news for Ortiz. In the end, Ortiz, while he might have been touched a little more than usual, and while he did get, from a skill standpoint, he probably was extended more than he's ever been extended before, still hasn't gone past the 7th round. There's some good news. Again, he got the win. He got a stoppage win. He's becoming a star there. For the limited capacity that they had, he seemed to draw a decent-sized, lively crowd, and that's only going to grow with performances like this. The bad side is that moving up in the welterweight division and being caught by shots that, you're not looking to get caught by can be trouble when you're facing the likes of an Errol Spence or you're facing the likes of a Terence Crawford. That just seems to me to be something that he's going to have to work on, obviously. That being said, of course, I'm sure he would fight those guys differently and they'd fight him differently and so on and so forth. So it's difficult to gauge completely, but my point being, there are some areas in which he can still improve and can work on his game, which I think he would admit himself. However, and getting back to that original point, he's said prior to this fight that he was interested in looking towards a Terence Crawford bout in the pretty immediate future, it seemed. And that's a pretty sizable step up. Now, again, as it really pertains to welterweights, if you're going to go after anyone with some gold, you're going to have to kind of pick your poison. There's a two-headed monster there, and you have to kind of go after the one you think you have a better shot against, really. And considering he and Spence seem to be close, and Crawford seems to be, a guy that I think Ortiz might fancy himself against, whether or not that, inaccurate or accurate, I think it makes sense he'd go after Crawford. I don't know which of the two would be an easier fight to make, but nonetheless, it's a fight that he might be pursuing. While it's difficult, it's tricky. Again, you look at a guy like Ortiz, and he's had less than 20 professional fights. It's difficult to look at how well he would do against someone like a Bud Crawford, who is a very, very skilled fighter, who has just as much dog in him as Ortiz does, who has been tested at the highest level, who's been hurt himself, who's been extended in wars, who's, gone deep into fights. It's difficult to pick against him at this point, no matter how exciting Vergil Ortiz looks. That being said, it is a very entertaining fight if it does get made, and it's obviously one that I would love to see. In any event, let me know what your thoughts are on the performance. I thought it was pretty good, like I said, kind of went the way I thought, but in the end, still a very solid stoppage, and it sets up potential massive bouts down the line if he is facing the likes of a Crawford or a Spence. Let me know who you'd like to see him face. Would love to hear that down in the comments. For full results, you can visit jonboxing.com. Be sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Be sure to email me at jonboxing@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_job. We'd love to hear from you there. And as always, until next time.